So Tim Duncan retired the other day, and because I made one of these videos for Kobe Bryant's retirement, I figured we'll do the same thing for Tim Duncan. And of course, with Kobe Bryant, he chose to go out in a blaze of glory, announcing that this was going to be his last season, and he did a whole huge thank you tour. But Tim Duncan, he chose to do it under the radar and announce at the end of the season that he was done, which pretty much personifies the way Tim Duncan was in his career. A guy never for the spotlight, was never really in any off-the-court issues, at least that I can think of. Never had any real issues with the team. It was just get on the floor, be consistent. And of course, with Tim Duncan, we look at a guy who is potentially the best post-up player in the history of the NBA. I mean, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Hakeem Olajuwon may be the top guys there, Karl Malone, Charles Barkley as well. Tim Duncan is not very far down that list. For a majority of the 2000s, the Spurs offense was dump it down to Tim Duncan and then play off of that. And of course, as Duncan got a little bit older and he wasn't able to be as effective from down there, still pretty damn good, but not as consistent, they changed up their offense a little bit. But interestingly enough, even I remember, I think it was the year after the Spurs won their most recent title and they faced the Clippers in the first round. They ended up losing the series, but Tim Duncan was cooking DeAndre Jordan, one of the best defensive centers in the league. Tim Duncan at age 35 plus or whatever, still killing it. And when we talk about how good Duncan was as he got older, we have to also recognize how good he was the moment he entered the NBA. His very first season, the guy averaged 21 points, 12 rebounds, 2.5 blocks, and he shot 55% from the field. His rookie season, the guy won Finals MVP in his second year in the league. I mean, from the moment Tim Duncan entered the NBA, he was one of the best players. And I mentioned his 2.5 blocks per game. Tim Duncan is very high up there on the greatest defenders in the history of the NBA. I would say Scottie Pippen is still number one, but Duncan may at least be the best defensive power forward ever. I mean, you look at Dennis Rodman, who's probably the best one there, unless I'm forgetting someone. Duncan is very high up there, and I think one thing that Duncan has over Rodman is he could play both the power forward and the center positions. Now, Rodman might have been better against perimeter players, at least when he was with the Pistons. But Tim Duncan, when it came to just his smarts defensively and towards the beginning and the middle part of his career, is a very good shot blocker as well. And the thing is, when I did the Kobe Bryant retirement video, I spoke on a couple of random shots that I remember in my head from Kobe's career. Funny enough, I don't have any real specific Tim Duncan moments, but I think that's just a testament to how consistent he was. He wasn't super flashy, he didn't have just one game that stands out. He just consistently was like 25 and 12, especially in big games. Fantastic defensive player, and that's how Tim Duncan wanted to be, and that's how the Spurs organization was for his entire tenure there. Now the conversation could be had, where does Tim Duncan rank all time on the NBA scale? I mean, this is my personal top whatever you want to say. I would say Michael Jordan is number one. Then you're looking at probably Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Russell. You got to throw Wilt Chamberlain in there at some point, but I think when you start looking at maybe like the number 8 to number maybe 5 or 4 area all time, I think you start looking at Tim Duncan and LeBron James and Kobe Bryant, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. I mean that's 5 names for 4 spots, and there's probably a couple other guys that I'm forgetting, but I think Tim Duncan is definitely a top 10 player, and if I really sat down and thought about it, maybe I could rationalize him being a top 5 player in the history of the NBA. Really that good. I mean, like I've mentioned, one of the best post-up players of all time, won 5 NBA championships, one of the best defensive players of all time, and of course it does suck to see him as well as Kobe Bryant retire in the same season, but that's how it goes. So that's it. I did this with Kobe Bryant. I wanted to do it with Tim Duncan as well. Just a little talk about the guy's career and yeah.